The Raptors win their fourth in a row, a comeback in Atlanta versus the Hawks. They are 2-0 in the NBA Cup. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that Scottie. And I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I was getting meetings right in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
Immanuel Quickley had his best game of the season, dropping 18 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals. But the main part, knocked down his three-point shots. IQ knocked down 3 threes. It should have been 4 with an and 1. And that really elevates his game offensively. You see, it wasn't just pull-up threes that he knocked down. He also hit this catch-and-shoot three. Great job by RJ Barrett to manipulate the help here. So you see with that little pass fake, Onyeka Okongwu digs in, Nickeil Alexander-Walker digs in, and so that creates a wide-open passing lane for RJ to IQ. Good job by RJ making the read, swing, and IQ knocks down that shot. That's the type of shot that he needs to make continuously. One of the more dangerous areas for IQ is in transition, especially with his pull-up three, and look how deep he can take this shot. This is, about 4 feet, maybe 5 feet beyond the three-point line above the break. That's just range that genuinely no one else on this Raptors team has, and not a lot of NBA players in general. IQ last year was one of the best pull-up shooters in the league, knocking down over 40% of his pull-up threes. They need him to be that again this season. He showed off that repertoire tonight against the Hawks. And of course, in pick and roll situations, it keeps defenses guessing, right? So in a pick and roll here, the Hawks miscommunicate on this switch, and this is enough daylight for a shooter like IQ to be able to knock down a three like. The connection with Jakob Poeltl is always potent, and so he gets Keaton Wallace in jail. And truthfully, I think he could probably do better here at getting an open shot, but he just rises up. Nice fadeaway jump shot in the mid-range area. Don't love that shot continuously, but it went down tonight. So this is why IQ's three-point shooting is so important, because it opens up the rest of his game. It also opens up him to be a better playmaker. So obviously at this point in the game, IQ has knocked down a few of his shots. They need to start respecting him. And so in these pick and roll situations like this one, Mamu is able to slip to the basket, right? And because they don't want to miscommunicate this, because he's already knocked down, IQ has knocked down a few of these threes above the break, it creates an opening. The Hawks send 2 to the ball, right? There's 2 guys at the ball. IQ, if he can't even make this pass over top to Mamu, he can redirect it to CMB, who can make this pass to Mamu. And instead, great job finding Mamu over top. Mamu with the dunk. Thought IQ was good defensively, too, in this one. So, as you see, early seal situation for the Hawks. He gets caught under the rim with Onyeka Okongwu. Jalen Johnson recognizes it. Probably a little bit of an ill-advised pass, but good job of fronting Okongwu and then jumping up and getting the steal. Really, really good activity from IQ there. This time, in an off-ball action, IQ recognizes that Zachary Ricochet is going to cut back door, and so he does a good job of recognizing it, jumping that passing lane, again, using his length to get that steal. And so IQ, Immanuel Quickley, the guy everybody was worried about and concerned about, had his best game of the season in one of the most impressive wins for the Toronto Raptors. As we welcome you inside the film room, ladies and gentlemen, 4 in a row for the Toronto Raptors. They have won 4 in a row after losing 4 in a row. What a funny start to this season for this Raptors team. Make sure, before we get started on this show, make sure to subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel. We are like 100 subscribers away from 15,000 subscribers. And, I was kind of looking through some of the numbers, and I noticed that over 50% of people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. It shocked me. But it means that there are some people who watch this channel, and we appreciate that. But you can also subscribe. You can also tap in. So tap in, do the thing that you guys usually do. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for subscribing and watching the Raptors Republic. Anyways, Raptors win in Atlanta in an NBA Cup game. They respected the cup tremendously. Honestly, it was a pretty ugly game. Truthfully, it was a pretty ugly game. And, as I was watching it back, like the slow start offensively killed the Raptors. I think they were really sluggish defensively too. Their rotations weren't as crisp. The Hawks were taking advantage. They were, death by 1,000 cuts. And the Hawks without Trae Young, they've done a really good job of weaponizing their cutting game, and Atlanta just back cut them to death, especially at the start of that first half. They did such a good job of finding open cutters, working within the seams of the offense to find guys cutting to the basket. And they have such good length, right? Jalen Johnson, Zachary Risachet, Dyson Daniels, all these guys. They're such heady cutters that they can find openings in the offense if your defense is slipping. And I thought the Raptors defense was pretty sluggish to start out this game. I also thought offensively, the shots weren't falling for this team. RJ Barrett started this game 0 for 6. He finished the game 7 of 15. He went 6 for 6 at some point in the second half. And it just felt like it took a while for the Raptors to get into this game. The only guy who really didn't need to get woken up at any point was Brandon Ingram, who ended up scoring 20 points, led all scorers. He took 19 shots, but I think a bulk of that inefficiency was him missing his threes. He was 2 of 8 from 3 tonight. In that mid-range area, he was exceptional, as he usually is, getting to his spots. And it really helped the Raptors stay afloat throughout this game in moments where the Hawks could have blown the doors open. I think the biggest lead that the Hawks had throughout was 13. The Raptors kept it in that 9 to 10 range basically throughout the game. And in that third quarter, there were a couple of big swings. The Raptors came out in the second half at the start of the third quarter, made a lot of really good plays. RJ Barrett made a couple of nice plays. Scottie Barnes made a couple of nice plays. Immanuel Quickley knocked down a couple of his shots. And then they caught up. The Hawks went on a run of their own and extended the lead once again. But then towards the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter, Grady Dick knocked down a few shots. Grady was great tonight. He had 11 points, knocked down 3 of his 4 threes. Really timely shot making from Grady, who knocked down a couple of clutch shots, especially to start that fourth quarter to cut into the Hawks lead and give the Raptors a run of their own. I also think Atlanta's defense in general, because they were without Trae Young, they were very comfortable switching in the perimeter. And this goes back to the length that I was mentioning offensively, right? Zachary Risachet, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. All of these guys are 6'4" to 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", and they are very comfortable switching around the perimeter. And that didn't allow the Raptors to get into the paint often. It also forced both RJ Barrett and Scottie Barnes into inefficient nights. So RJ was 7 of 15, 46% from the field. Brandon Ingram, like I mentioned, didn't have an efficient night. Scottie Barnes also 5 of 16, 31% from the field. So those guys, it took them a while to get going offensively, partially because it was an ugly game, partially because the shots weren't falling, but also because I thought Atlanta did a really good job of limiting paint touches for the Raptors. In the second half, Scottie and RJ just realized that they are going to be stronger players for the most part, and they amped up their physicality. They became more physical players, and they got into the paint more often. The Raptors scored in the paint more often. Let's break down Scottie and RJ, the difference between the two halves, tailor the two halves, if you will, for those two players. All right, so late in the second quarter, RJ Barrett has gotten Kristaps Porzingis on a switch. And while this might be a situation where RJ can really attack the basket and attack the slower-footed Kristaps Porzingis, instead he just does a step back 3. So settling in these opportunities, he gets his second chance opportunity, but he misses in the mid-range as well. Now look at a good RJ Barrett possession, and shout out to Jakob Poeltl here for really laying out Zachary Risachet on a screen. RJ and Jakob always have really good chemistry, and so he lays out Risachet here on the screen, and now he has some downhill momentum, right? Look at the space that he can attack. He has Risachet on his hip, so he can use that to bait a foul. And now this is a really advantageous position for RJ Barrett to be in. So, Reese Shea catches up and he uses it, foul, and one. That was created by one, RJ Barrett being aggressive, but also the pick and roll chemistry of him and Pirtle. So similar situation here with Scottie Barnes in the first half. Scottie, gets the pick and roll. Kristaps Porzingis switches out onto him. And instead of either being physical with Porzingis or, being quick and getting to the basket because he has the slower footed Porzingis on him, he just settles for a mid-range jump shot. And that's fine. Like Scottie can go for those mid-range jump shots, but you could be better than that offensive process wise. And to look at good offensive process here, again, flat pick and roll between Jakob Poeltl and Scottie Barnes, and flat just means like Jakob here is 1-5 flat, right? So most guys are spaced to the corner, right? IQ is here, but for the most part, it is basically a 1-5 pick and roll. Not one, but you know what I mean. It's a pick and roll, folks. It's about as easy as I could explain it. And so this allows Scottie, who, by the way, bursts through the seams of the defense much quicker here, attacks the slower-footed Okongwu, gets all the way downhill, finishes, and guess what? The Raptors now have the lead. That was one of the biggest buckets of the game, and it came because of an aggressive Scottie Barnes. So, folks, that is the difference between the level of aggression that Scottie and RJ displayed in the second half versus the first half. And it really amped up the physicality. It allowed the Raptors to get into the paint more. It allowed them to get good opportunities. And this was a gutsy win. This was an impressive, gutsy win. And I know the Hawks didn't have Trae Young, but at the same time, that the Hawks have actually been playing pretty good basketball without Trae Young. Not going to lie. If you go look at their numbers over the last couple of games, they've actually been playing pretty good. Their defense has been really good without Trae Young. It's been night and day, truthfully, without him. They're still a better team with Trae, but I'm just saying the defense has been much better, and it's a different type of defense for the Raptors to try and attack. And so this was a team that was very prepared for the fast-paced style that the Raptors wanted to play. They didn't allow the Raptors to play that fast-paced style, but the Raptors course-corrected and found different ways to approach the game, which, by the way, is the making of a good team. Like a good team can figure out on the fly, okay, like we don't have it tonight offensively. We can't get to our usual stuff. How are we going to grind out this win? And the Raptors grinded up this win and got it done. And that's impressive. I saw Kirthika, she tweeted this, but this was the second game in a row where the Raptors starters won their minutes. It made sense. Shout out to Jakob Poeltl, who in that first half looked really slow. Looked like that back was hurting him again. I don't know if he had some icy hot, some Toradol or something like that in halftime, but he looked good in the second half. He looked more rejuvenated in the second half. Looked like he had more pep in his step, and Jakob ended up finishing with 12 points, 10 rebounds, a steal, a block, and an assist. The Raptors are better when he is good. Quite simply, he is so important to this team as a center. Philadelphia on Saturday on the second night of a back-to-back. I'm very excited to see how that looks, purely because the Sixers should pose some troubles for the Raptors defense. Between Tyrese Maxey, between Quentin Grimes, between VJ Edgecombe, who I'm really excited about, and Jared McCain, who just returned to the lineup. All three of those guys are quick, bursty guards, right? Guys who can really create their own shots, guys who can get downhill, especially Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. And so how does that impact the Raptors' somewhat aggressive defense? They've toned down the aggression, but how does that affect it as we look forward to tomorrow? I am very curious to see how that looks. We'll see if Joel Embiid plays. I actually haven't looked that up yet, but that's another factor to this. Embiid might play. We'll see how that looks for Jakob Poeltl. Maybe CMB gets some minutes on Embiid. He's taken a lot of big matchups. But I'm kind of curious to see how they match up against Philly, because if I'm going to be honest, I think those two teams are probably going to be battling for positioning in April. I think they're similar ilk. Sorry, elk. Elk is animal. Similar ilk, they're kind of cut from the same cloth in terms of the tier of basketball, the team that they are. There are a lot more questions with the Sixers just because of their health and Paul George and Joel Embiid and all that type of stuff. But I think they're in a similar tier in the Eastern Conference. So I do think these two teams are playing for positioning. That's why I'm excited for this game against Philly. That should be fun. Same thing with Atlanta, by the way. That's why it's a big win. Same thing with Milwaukee. That's why it's a big win. The Raptors are playing good basketball. It looks good. It feels good. It's 4 in a row, man. Yeah, the good times, hopefully the good times keep on going. From the NBA Cup perspective, this puts the Raptors in really nice position because now they're 2-0 in their group. They have the point differential. They've already beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the two teams that they have to beat moving forward are the Indiana Pacers and Washington Wizards, one of which is incredibly injured and one of which is the Washington Wizards. So they should pretty comfortably win this division, which means they have a decent chance of making it to Las Vegas and making it to the semifinals or finals of the NBA Cup. Look at that. That would be a great experience for this somewhat young Toronto Raptors team that is trying to get some playoff experience under their belt. Folks, 4 in a row, gutsy win. Raptors starters starting to look better. Immanuel Quickley starting to look better. This team trying to kind of win muddy games. That's a big W. We appreciate you guys tapping into the Raptors film room. Thank you very much for listening to Raptors Republic. Again, if you have a chance and you haven't subscribed and you like this video, if you've finished this and you're like, I like the cut of this guy's jib. This guy's cool. I know Samson. I know Trey. Those guys are cool. I like the cut of their jib. Subscribe. Come hang out with us. Do your thing. We appreciate you guys. Peace.